Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, my name is Dr. Ian Phillips, and we have Mamdani finally commenting here on as to whether or not he is allowed to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu as the war criminal who he is. And we're going to play this little clip here today. He releases a 2-minute statement, and we'll talk about it very briefly. So here we go.
Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal, the architect of a horrific genocide against the Palestinian people. He is responsible for the killing of more than 73,000 people, for the maiming of tens of thousands of children, as those who survive undergo amputation without anesthesia, for the targeting of neonatal hospitals and maternity care centers, denying newborns even the chance to live, for the countless people he starved as he blocked food and humanitarian aid from reaching them, for the gunning down of hundreds of aid workers and journalists. And just last month, the UN confirmed that Palestinian children continue to be deliberately targeted and killed by Israeli armed forces, more than 8 months after the so-called ceasefire. The list goes on and on, all as we, as Americans, pay for the bombs that do the killing. There is a reason the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for his arrest. As human beings, we have spent generations building a shared understanding that there are crimes so grave they offend all of humanity. Anyone, with their eyes, with their heart, with their conscience, should recognize the devastation he has wrought and understand that he belongs before a court of law. As I've said, I agree with the ICC that Benjamin Netanyahu should be arrested and tried for his crimes, as I do for anyone else charged by the ICC. My administration has reviewed every avenue available under applicable law to determine whether New York City could execute the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant if Benjamin Netanyahu came here. It is clear that we do not have the independent legal authority to enforce this warrant. The federal government, however, does, and I call on them to join the ICC and execute this warrant. And I want to be equally clear. Benjamin Netanyahu is not welcome in New York City, nor is any other war criminal at large. While we cannot end the genocide on our own, we can decide whether our silence will become another weapon, and we can examine every tool we have to defend the humanity and dignity of all people. That is my commitment to you.
There we go. Office of the Mayor of New York City there, Mamdani, our beloved mayor. Well, I guess I'm not actually in New York. He's not my beloved mayor, but I wish he was my beloved mayor. Now, this is interesting because he ran actually on his campaign saying that he was going to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. However, what's very important to know here, he's not going back on his campaign promise. He said he will do whatever is applicable to him with respects to the law. Like, he said he's not going to violate the law. And in the United States, quite frankly, we just don't have the laws here to prosecute war criminals. We just don't, because you know why? The presidents do war crimes all the time. And some cases, yes, they're insulated from war crimes. And so, they got a little bit plausible deniability there. But at the end of the day, the shit that we do around the world is absolutely insane. I mean, for God's sake, one of the things that Donald Trump did was he actually signed an executive order to ban the reporting of drone strike casualties for people like civilians. And so it's like, okay, well, like, that's clearly a problem, like that's an issue. It's like, well, why would you do that unless you didn't have bad intentions, right? I mean, am I wrong? Call me crazy, right? But anyways, at the end of the day here, Mamdani probably did try to look at every legal avenue that he had. And his call, or his best avenue, was just reaching out to the people and essentially saying, look, this guy is a war criminal. He's not welcome in New York City. We're not going to arrest him, but he's not welcome here. And we call upon the federal government to arrest him for us because they have the authority to do so by joining the ICC, which, of course, they're never going to do, certainly not under this administration, and most likely not underneath a Democratic administration as well. It's pretty obvious at this point. Donald Trump, for example, has taken steps to actively try and dismantle the ICC and mitigate their power as much as possible because he's doing a lot of bad things. This is a guy who's bombed 7 countries since he took office in his second term alone, and he supported up to 3 proxy wars. There's arguments that he's supporting even more right now. But you can look at places like Lebanon and Palestine and Russia, Ukraine. Now, my take here is, and I've always said this before in the past, is yes, sometimes you can maybe extend the war crimes a little too far, considering that, all is fair in love and war, right? If somebody does something to you, you might want to do something to them. I can understand there's situations where things are going to happen, and maybe you don't hold people accountable, right? It's just like common sense, right? But in the same breath here, 99% of the war crimes and crimes against humanity, I should say 100%, really, but maybe there's an exception here and there, should be an arrestable offense. And by not arresting these people, we essentially say that it's okay. In my place of work, one of the things I seen going around, or actually, this wasn't going around for my place of work. It was one of my friends' place of work. She's a teacher. And she was saying, what we permit is what we promote. And I can agree with that statement. That's a very good sentiment there. If you permit it, thereby you promote it, right? You permit Netanyahu to come here. You're saying the ICC, the International Criminal Court, who prosecutes people for the worst crimes imaginable, yeah, they deserve to be, arrested, right? If you don't arrest them, then you're essentially promoting them, right? Am I wrong? So I don't know. It's an interesting statement and sentiment here coming out of the New York City mayor, saying like, look, you're not welcome, but dude, I can't do what I want to, but look, you have this power here, and if you permit this, you're kind of promoting this. Essentially, what he's saying. So I don't know. With that said, guys, hopefully we end up having a right decision be made. I imagine that we won't, but this tweet absolutely blew up. I believe this is probably on his Instagram too, but I found it on Twitter. It has 1.2 million likes, which, for context, if you guys aren't familiar, that's a crazy amount of likes. That is like diabolical amount of likes. So with that said, it's clearly the message is being spread far and wide. We're just going to have to see what happens from here. Again, Netanyahu's wanted in like 140 countries. So, like, can we do anything about that, bro? I don't know. Crazy stuff. But with that said, guys, if you did enjoy the video here, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for some more content. And we'll talk to you later. Peace.